picking up from the spectrum through the end. The spectrum, Josh also identifies with traits historically associated with Asperger's syndrome and the autism spectrum, the way he processes information, the intensity and narrowness of his focus, the directness of his communication style, and the way his mind natively organizes systems and structures. This is Josh's own understanding of how he experiences the world, and it should be received as such, but it is a real and meaningful part of how he understands his own mind, and it is directly connected to both the extraordinary capability and the genuine difficulty described throughout this section. The two are not separate phenomena, they are the same thing viewed from two directions. One practical consequence worth naming: Josh is direct. When he tells you something is wrong, or that a detail matters, or that he needs something done differently, it is information, not aggression. He is not managing your feelings while he speaks, and he is not expecting you to manage his. If you can receive directness as directness rather than as criticism, you will find him far easier to work with than most people do. The two comparisons. Josh uses two comparisons to explain himself, and both are genuinely useful. The good doctor, the central character in that show, has a mind that works fundamentally differently from those around him, which creates real serious limitations in some areas and near superhuman ability in others. That shape is what Josh is pointing at, not the plot, not the specific diagnosis, not the medical setting, the trade off: profound capability and a real disabling gap, both originating from exactly the same neurological source, inseparable from one another. You cannot remove one without removing the other, which is precisely why Josh has never wanted to be cured of this. He wants to be supported in it. Elon Musk. This is the more direct and more useful comparison, and it deserves full explanation. Musk is the wealthiest person in the world. He is also openly on the autism spectrum and widely understood to have ADHD. Those two facts are not a coincidence, and they are not in tension with each other. They are causally connected. The traits that make ADHD and autism disabling in ordinary daily life: the inability to filter stimulation, the compulsive systems thinking, the obsessive depth on a narrow subject, the relentless idea generation, the inability to stop working, the indifference to conventional structure, are the same traits that produce extraordinary outcomes when they are pointed at the right problem and supported by the right structure. Musk did not succeed by curing his ADHD or by becoming neurotypical. He succeeded because he built an organization of thousands of people around himself who execute what he cannot execute personally. He supplies the vision, the direction, and the standard. Build this, fix that, go faster. And other people carry it through to completion, step by step, in order, while he moves on to the next thing. That is the entire model. The neurological wiring stays exactly the same. What changes is the support structure around it. Josh is a mini version of Musk operating in the business and finance space. The parallels are specific and real. Same wiring: ADHD, spectrum traits, obsessive pattern recognition, systems native thinking, and measured intelligence in the same rarefied band, confirmed independently by both military aptitude testing and multiple clinical IQ assessments. Same intensity. Josh runs 18 hours a day and barely sleeps because his mind will not let him stop. Musk is famous for the same thing. Neither of them is doing it as a discipline. It is what the brain does. Same profile of ability. Both see complete systems and future structures that other people cannot see yet, and both are consistently early rather than wrong. Being early looks exactly like being wrong, right up until it does not. Same domain dominance. Musk in aerospace and energy, Josh in business credit and business funding, where he is already recognized as one of the top authorities in the United States. Same trajectory. Both wanted to move from their established business into a technology driven version of it. Josh has patents filed and platforms under construction for exactly that reason. Same single dependency. It only works with a team. And that last point is where the two diverge completely. Musk has thousands of people executing his direction every single day. Josh, so far, has had almost nobody, and the handful of people he did trust in that role over 15 years largely took from him rather than built with him. That is the entire difference between where Josh is now and what he is objectively capable of. Not talent, not vision, not expertise, not reputation, not work ethic, not intelligence. Every single one of those is already in place and independently proven with a documented track record behind each one. He simply does not yet have the people to say, do this, do that too. Part 3. He does not want a large team. Josh has been explicit and repeated about this. He does not want 20 employees. He does not want 20 partners. He has run larger operations before, and he knows exactly what that costs him in management overhead, in trust exposure, in complexity, and in the sheer energy of supervising people, which is itself an executive function task he struggles with. What he wants is fewer than 5 loyal, capable people. A handful, people who can absorb what he generates and carry it forward, who fill in the executive function gaps described in Part 2, and who he does not have to spend energy defending himself against. That is a small enough number that every individual person in it matters enormously. This is not a job posting where you are one of 200 applicants. If this works, you are one of 3 or 4 people in the world in that position, and the difference in outcome between having you and not having you is measured in millions of dollars and in whether a 16-year-old girl is financially secure for the rest of her life. What he actually needs from you, not management, not supervision, not someone to tell him what to do or set his priorities. He has more direction than he can possibly use. He needs people who can catch the ideas he generates and record them accurately before they evaporate, because they do evaporate constantly, and everyone that evaporates is potential money and progress that simply vanished into nothing. Understand them correctly, including the specific distinctions that matter to him, without collapsing the important details into a vague approximation. When you are unsure, ask. Carry them to completion, step by step, in sequence, to a finished state, while he moves on to the next thing. Finished is the operative word. 90% done is worth close to nothing to him, because he already owns an enormous warehouse of things that are 90% done. Supply the organization that he cannot reliably supply himself. Structure, tracking, follow through, and memory that lives outside his head. Be honest with him consistently, including and especially when the news is bad or when you made the mistake. Refer back to the section on how he stores dishonesty. This is not optional, and it is not a formality. Learn quickly and not require the same thing explained repeatedly, because repeated explanation is expensive for him in a way it is not for most people. Notice what is not on that list: brilliance, credentials, experience, a technical background. Josh supplies the raw intelligence and the vision himself at a level that has been measured twice and found to sit in the top tenth of 1%. What he is missing is entirely on the execution side, the technology reality. Here is something Josh wants both of you to genuinely internalize, because it fundamentally changes what is possible for you personally. You no longer need a traditional coding background to build real software. That statement was not true 5 years ago. It is true now. With AI assisted development tools, Cursor, and systems like it, a motivated person who learns the workflow can build functional portals, dashboards, applications, and platforms, and can do it quickly without a computer science degree and without years of conventional programming training. Raquel, you have no coding background. You have already taught yourself CapCut. You learn quickly. You are 10 feet away from Josh and you are eager. Kevin, the same opportunity applies to you directly. What this means practically is that the skill barrier that would have made this entire conversation impossible a few years ago has largely collapsed. What is required now is the willingness to learn the tools, follow instruction carefully, and execute consistently. That is genuinely, realistically achievable for both of you, starting from exactly where you are today. And here is the important part. Josh has more projects he wants built than he could possibly build himself in 10 lifetimes. That is not a shortage of opportunity. It is a massive surplus of it, sitting unbuilt, waiting for hands. Understand the timing here, too. This window where AI assisted development is powerful enough to remove the skill barrier, but new enough that most people have not yet learned to use it, will not stay open indefinitely. Learning this now, properly, puts you years ahead of people who will learn it later. That advantage is real, it is significant, and it is available to you at this specific moment. The opportunity Josh is not greedy, that is one of the most consistent facts across his entire history, and by this point in the document, you have seen the evidence for it repeatedly. When he earns, he shares. He funded a former office manager's pilot training out of his own pocket. He took a 17-year-old boy off the street and gave him a home. He has put real money into the lives of people who worked with him honestly, with no obligation whatsoever to do so. He wants both of you to understand the earning potential he envisions here, and he wants it stated as his genuine intention, while also being honest that it is a vision and an intended opportunity rather than a contract or a guarantee. He is not going to insult you by promising something he cannot unilaterally control. Consider the arithmetic honestly. Josh has personally earned around 50,000 US dollars in a single month, alone, with no team, before modern AI leverage existed at all. He has sold businesses for over $4 million. He has held over $1.5 million in cash. He runs a business where strangers pay him 3 to 500,000 pesos after a single 30-minute phone call. Now consider what changes if the execution bottleneck is removed. If the ideas he generates actually get built instead of dying unfinished. If there are two capable people converting his vision into shipped product while he keeps generating more. Josh's belief, and it is a serious belief rather than a sales line, is that in that scenario, the people beside him do not have to worry about money again. He has stated that 50 to 100,000 pesos a month is the low end of what he sees as achievable for people in this role, and that the ceiling above that is genuinely open because his own earning ceiling is genuinely open. That is his vision and his stated intent. It depends on execution, on loyalty, and on results from him and from you both. But it is not an empty promise from a man with no track record. It comes from someone who has personally generated those numbers before, repeatedly, and who is currently limited by one specific, identifiable, solvable problem. What he asks in return: loyalty, honesty, patience, speed of learning, consistent execution. That is genuinely the entire list. Josh does not need you to be brilliant. He supplies that himself. At a measured level, most people will never encounter in a working lifetime. He needs people who will not take from him, who will tell him the truth, who will learn fast, and who will finish what they start. Given everything in part one, and everything in the section on how he stores dishonesty, understand that the loyalty and honesty requirements are not a formality or a corporate value statement. They are the exact things he has been burned on repeatedly, at a cost exceeding $7.5 million, and, in one case, at a cost that ended his marriage and left him raising two small girls alone. They are worth more to him than raw talent, and he rewards them accordingly. Patience deserves its own mention. Working with Josh will involve moments of intensity, moments of frustration, and moments where he changes direction faster than feels comfortable. None of that is aimed at you. It is what the inside of his head does, leaking outward under a weight you now understand. If you can stay steady through it and keep executing, you will be worth more to him than someone twice as skilled who cannot. What this document is, for the purpose here is not sympathy. Josh does not want either of you feeling sorry for him, walking on eggshells, or treating him as fragile. He would find that genuinely insulting, and if you have understood anything about him from these pages, you already know that. The purpose is accuracy. You cannot help someone effectively if you fundamentally misunderstand what they are struggling with. And Josh's struggle is specific and unusual enough that, without this explanation, you would almost certainly misread it. You would see a clearly brilliant man with enormous ideas and deep expertise who somehow cannot seem to finish things, and you would draw the wrong conclusion about why. Most people do, most people have. The truth is simpler and stranger than that. The vision is already complete in his head. Every project, every system, every business, he can see it start to finish, right now, today, in full detail. What he cannot reliably do is walk the road between here and there, alone, in sequence, while 20 other complete visions are simultaneously demanding his attention, while the medication that used to help does less than it used to, and while a clock runs down on a promise he has made to his daughter. That road is what the two of you are for. Consider what this man has already absorbed to arrive at this point: poverty, a father absent for 15 years, a ninth grade education, homelessness, enlistment, the top 7% of his platoon, an infantry deployment, and actions taken under orders that still visit him 20 years later, a medical honorable discharge earned by refusing to do again what he could no longer morally do. 19 years, building a life in a country not his own, $7.5 million taken from him by people he had fed, housed, trusted, and in some cases rescued. 5 days between his father's diagnosis and his father's death. A wife's betrayal with a boy he had taken off the street. A custody fight in Kalibo, won alone at the worst moment of his life. Two little girls, 4 and 5 years old, suddenly his alone to raise. And then, on the second day of August in 2019, standing in a hospital and making the decision no parent should ever be asked to make about an 18-year-old girl who wanted to be a nurse and who spent her free time caring for animals nobody else would. Then his brother in 2020, then his sister in 2021. He is still here. He is still building. He is still generating ideas at a rate that outpaces his ability to execute them. And he is still trying at 44 to construct something durable enough to protect the children he has left. He has the ideas. The intelligence, measured twice by two independent systems and found in the top 10th of 1%. The domain expertise, the reputation, the audience, the patents, the proven ability to generate very large sums of money, all of it already in place, already demonstrated, already carried through cycles that would have permanently stopped almost anyone else. He is missing execution capacity and only execution capacity. If that gap gets closed properly by a small group of people who actually understand him, who he can trust, and who consistently deliver, then what becomes possible is not incremental improvement. It is transformative for him, for his children, and for everyone standing beside him when it happens a month after he buried her on what would have been her 19th birthday. Josh signed his name simply as Dad in Alexis's guest book and wrote, "Happy birthday, baby. I love you and wish you were here with us. I know you are now my angel." That is the man. Everything above is just the detail. Now you know who you are working with, and you know what is actually at stake. That is what Josh is asking you to understand before anything else begins. This is part one, who Josh is. Part two, covering what he wants built and how, comes separately.